Hi there. Welcome to For Mothers of Daughters. This is the first episode of my new podcast, and I have no idea what I'm doing, but that's okay because this is a space for authenticity, integrity, and just going with the flow. So I'm going to be hopefully having really good conversations with lots of mothers of daughters and experts who are also mothers of daughters. So it's going to become a conversational podcast, but for now, I just want to introduce why I am doing this podcast. So every episode I'm going to have will start with a quote from an expert or a mother who, mothers are the experts really at the end of the day. And this week, I want to start with this one from Peg Streep. And she said, the mother's relationship to her daughter not only forms the earliest, if not primary, foundation for how the daughter formulates her sense of self, but is the basic template for her understanding of how relationships work in the world. And I think that's pretty powerful, and it's a really good place to start as to why I am doing this podcast. So I'll introduce a wee bit about me. So I'm the youngest of six. I have three brothers who are 10, 9 and 8 years older than me, and two sisters, and they're 6 and 4 years older than me. I've always loved babies and kids, and I always knew I wanted to be a mummy. But I was always a single Pringle until I was 38, and I was nearly 39 when I met Toby. And Toby is just everything that I needed in my life when I came to a man. He's kind, understanding, supports me for who I am. He's funny, he's really playful and silly, and I just love all of his interests and have gotten bored with them. But it's just all I wanted in a relationship. And I know like my family are delighted that he is my husband. And we have a little girl, and she is 8 months old today, actually. So I've been a wee bit delayed with getting this podcast recorded, but it's actually quite lovely that she's 8 months old today. Um, and something that's been in my mind is my own mother's upbringing and how much I reflect on it. So I'll probably talk about my relationship with my mummy and her own life. So she was 4, the eldest of 3 girls, when their mother sadly passed away in hospital, and I really feel like that's impacted her more than she realizes. And years ago, maybe about 10 years ago, when I was doing my first attachment training, loads of pennies dropped in my head. When I learned about attachment, and then I became a little bit obsessed with it. I do a lot of reading around attachment, and I always have a couple of books on the go. One of them based around psychology or attachment theory, or child psychology. So where my interests very much lie. Um, and I think as well today, we're encouraged to tap into our feelings and talking about our feelings. And when I was wee, I honestly don't think that mummy had time to even think what she felt. She was always a doer, always in service, always making sure that there was food on the table, clean clothes, clean house, everything, homework was done. Went to school every day. All of her needs were completely met. Um, so, like for myself, another thing that I'm going to be talking about a good bit is my fertility journey and all the anxiety that came with it. I've had a lot of difficulties with mental health over the years as well. And with my fertility journey, I just couldn't believe it when I got my wee girl, and when I was told that I had a wee girl. Uh, just that moment, and I watched that video again and again and again because the midwives that were in there, they were really kind, and they recorded the birth of my daughter, and she was born by C-section. And I'm just desperate to be the best mum that I can to her. So this podcast came out in my brain when I was out for a New Year walk with Rasha. And I'd always wanted to record a podcast related to my work as a celebrant and life coach. But my mind went absolutely wild when I thought of all the topics that I'm interested in relating to being a mummy, especially when it comes to attachment theory. And I kind of feel like this podcast is going to be something that will evolve with me as I'm learning to be a mummy, because I am learning to be a mummy. I haven't, people tell me that I was born to be a mummy, and, when I was pregnant, you're going to be the best mummy ever. This is what you're made to do. And I always felt that I was put in this earth to be a mummy. No pressure, like, but I need to learn how to be a mummy by being fully myself as well. So, anyway, it was quite unwell at the beginning of January, so I didn't get recording this episode, and I went into a wee bit of a despair spiral as well as a mummy because I was so unwell. And thank goodness for Toby, he just took the load. I couldn't leave bed for a couple of days, and then like I felt like it was going to really impact my relationship with Russia. And anyway, I could go on and on and on with how I was impacted. So the whole point of me saying that is that this podcast is all about being real and feeling how we're feeling every day, and appreciating any time we do get things a wee bit wrong. It's part of learning. So just to tell you a wee bit about what the episodes are going to involve, I'm going to be talking a lot about mirror neurons, how Rosh is going to be able to pick up on things from me based on how I'm behaving, how I'm feeling, and learning more about that through action and speaking with other mothers and other people who are deemed to be experts in the field. Um, I really believe that how you speak to and about yourself can really impact your daughter, how they're going to be speaking to and about themselves in the future. So I'll be looking at things like diet, exercise, how we look at and talk about our bodies, or just our body image in general. Exercise is really important to me, for my own well-being. Like, I really feel it if I am not exercising. And, if I am in a bad enough form or I'm feeling a bit low, the one thing that like will sort me out is a wee walk, a bit of fresh air. I love being in the outdoors. And um I used to be an early years educator, and my big thing was get outdoors as much as possible. No matter what the weather is, apart from if it's a wild wind day or full of hailstones. If it's safe to be out, get outside and wrap up warm if you need to, and put on the sun cream if the weather's half decent here. So talking about interests and child's interests, your interests, making sure that you're celebrating the person that you are, you're still staying the woman that you are before you had the baby, so that that baby gets to know you as the person that you are. Um, your time with friends, like how that can impact our raising of our daughters, relationship with family, the relationship with the child's father, our relationship with food, kind of linked to diet and exercise. Relationship with alcohol is a big one. The time that we spend on our phone, what signal is that sending out to our child? Again, it's a judgment-free zone. Um, the time we spend on social media and how that impacts us, and then how that filters down and impacts our little one. Cosmetic surgery, and makes me think back to when we had COVID and people were walking around in masks. And at the time I was special needs coordinator for the school, and we were looking at preparing for children coming back to school post COVID. And one thing that I sensed in the future is just wearing masks, covering up all these facial expressions, and how that would impact on children in the future. But as well, cosmetic surgery, a lot of people are going for Botox and plumpers, and apparently there's like a thing to like take fat out of your face now. I didn't realise this. And if we're impacting our ability to facially express, how is that going to impact on our children's ability to see facial expressions and express as well? Um, Preparing for school is a big one because, as I say, I was early years educator. Big job of mine was to prepare children for coming into school. And special needs coordinator, like understanding children with additional needs. Um, I'd like to be talking about it takes a village, that phrase, it takes a village, and what to do when you don't have a village around you. Maybe if you have more than one child, if you have another daughter or two, or if there's a son as well. Maybe if there are blended families, how that impacts on your daughter's upbringing. Celebrating milestones like birthdays and getting a first tooth. Like my wee girl, tooth finally popped through yesterday. Um, their naming day, or if they're able to walk, just celebrating those milestones and how to celebrate them and how to mark them. Things like imposter syndrome, my God, who doesn't suffer from imposter syndrome? Oh, I'm constantly having to have a word with myself, so I think that's going to come up quite heavily throughout. I'm also self-employed now. I used to be, as I say, a teacher, and I left that job and became a self-employed celebrant and life coach. So I'm balancing work and my small business. Like, I've been working since Russia was about 2 weeks old on my laptop, and doing weddings when she was 4 weeks old. Did my first wedding, and it's just been pretty much constant since then, which is great. I'll be talking about mental health in general quite a lot, and mental health challenges as a mother, and neurodivergent mothering as well. So I have no diagnoses, but I have very little doubt that I have ADHD and potentially autism, but I don't know. There's a lot of neurodivergence in my family, my husband's family, and yeah, it's just like the understanding of that and how we can support ourselves and support our children with neurodivergence. I'll be thinking of skincare, hormones. Hormones is a biggie for me. I've learned an awful lot about hormones in the last few years, and it's been key to my success, I think, in my fertility journey. And then related to that, understanding our bodily functions, how our body works, especially in relation to hormones. And again, back to neurodivergence, sensory processing, understanding sensory processing difficulties, which can be disorders, can really impact on how we live our day-to-day life and how we understand our children and their needs and support them with them. I'm going to be talking about self-respect and consent. I'm going to be thinking about codependency as well. I'm going to be thinking about mothers who have been sadly raised without their mothers for whatever reason. I'll also be thinking of guilt and martyrdom. I have come from a very Irish Catholic family where I'm not saying that it was in my family, but we all know that Catholicism is closely related to guilt and martyrdom. So that'll come in quite a lot in our conversations. And then, of course, I am going to be talking about my Catholic upbringing because that's who I am. It's like, it's the experience I had as a child. We're thinking about breastfeeding as well, and related to not being very well at the beginning of the month, letting yourself be unwell as a mother and how that communicates out to your daughter. And then also trusting others to do things right. I have long been somebody who kind of follows the premise of, if you want a job done properly, do it yourself, or a job isn't done properly. A job isn't done unless it's done properly. So for me, it's like trying to work with those premises and how to become a bit more flexible with them. So this is a short and sweet little introductory episode explaining who I am, and I'm really, really excited to get chatting to a lot of people about different issues. Something I forgot to mention was talking about grief and bereavement as a mother. So we're going to have a really special episode with a friend of mine. And she has two daughters, two teenage daughters, and one has been diagnosed with autism. And they very sadly lost their husband and dad just over 2 years ago, sorry. And it was a tragic, sudden circumstances, and just how that's impacted her as a mother and her children, her daughters. So really important to me that this is focused on for mothers of daughters, that we are having real conversations, but coming up with practical support to get through life every day, where we're learning to be as good as we can be. We're not going to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. But it's about like loving ourselves, being compassionate with ourselves, and sending those messages out to our daughters as we raise them in this increasingly crazy world. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you join me every time I release a new podcast episode. Ciao.